Hello, guys. Um, don't really have that really great of a studio here today, and I've been trying to throw this together as quickly as possible with some stuff that I've had coming across for like forever in my entire life. I don't really care where this goes to, but in the fall of Afghanistan and everything else, I wish I could say it's somehow better, worse, or anything else with it. Um, you know, people all like we've already told them everything. We've already done everything. I did an outline actually even for it. As stupid as it is to just go over here, you can be like, it's YouTube venting the thoughts. The people are going to come over and get everybody. No one really watches my channel, I understand. I subscribe to myself and people hack it and say, you're a retarded dumbass. I don't really care. I know mostly White Sands will steal all this, and it's the people who don't really need it. You know, we can't even give birth to our own scientists or anything else. So we have to have everybody who held arms against our country, who's really on the sides of the enemy and everything else, watching it all and taking it. But, you know, considering I had 4 or 5 of them hack in here just a little bit ago and give me the mosquito ring from whatever it is over there in that bullshit area and be like, they already know it from us. You suck. Don't ever say that you're better than us again. And it's like, I've never said that, but I put it on a comment on a YouTube group that I know that they'll read, they'll see it. They watch that guy all the time. I'm serious. I'm like, you fuss at me that there are people who get paid to actually make poignant comments like I do, and you take them from me because I gave them to you for free and I'm your slave. But just in saying this, you're bitching at me saying I said that I was better than you by basically 5 or 10 little comments that I made to a boss the other day. Went and sat down in 2 clubs and proved that somebody was a leak over there with some bullshit that had happened. Not sure who it was. And then I get, going, no one's gonna watch this, and even if it got somewhere and YouTube reviewers just went, maybe we should pass it on or something else. It's like, fuck it. I was about ready not to, but since they said that I've always said and maintained that I was better than them in any way, shape, form, and possible, to all of them truly, here's basically this. We all knew something was coming, just like when they went after Russia. I am 41 years of age. I supposedly had a really good memory. I've had a lot of people do a whole lot of stuff, and it's like this. Yes, I've had 7 or 8 bleed-out incidences. I still had a good memory up until they probably did something that's very remotely like Havana sickness. Basically, you take a bunch of cell phones and put them underneath the head of the person or wherever they're going to be at for about 30 to 40 minutes, like if they fall asleep, or else they have a standard position, or you can keep it inside a metal box and just have the signal bounce around inside of it. You can do this with lizards and stuff, and the creepy people who don't go out there and go, I want to kill it with a knife or a gun, and it's like serial killers with tech, but whatever. Yeah, and that's basically how you do Havana sickness. We can go into all the other stuff out there with everything. Take a bunch of your cell phones, put them in a plastic bag underneath wherever this is. Maybe even have a metal rod or something else that helps angle the signal or something else, like an old antenna and everything. And if you get enough of them together, have 1 or 2 of them dial to whatever it is, and dial a sat phone or something else and be like, we've got it passing over right now. Pure commercial, pure everything on the back end of whatever, and just have all that crap be put through, and it links up, and it keeps bouncing back and forth between the satellite going, faster than my finger can go there. That's it. But, whatever. Here, let's move on with the outline and business and what they all trying to do, and they go, we can talk to you now with a sat phone and hit you in your head anytime we want to. Dark side and all those hackers holding shit for hostage, the Netflix videos, all of that, dark side and others. In a way, this came up, and there were some things that were very sci-fi, very space-like that were over in Russia, and they used them similarly in their situations over in Russia. These actually are some of them that made over. We had kind of a crossover situation with Space Odyssey 2001 and the follow-up to it. And basically, it's attacking anything that has to do with our future technology, space, some of our religious situations that people go, we have a Christian church here, we don't have a Christian church. Our religion is not based off of Jesus. It's the Constitution and our separation and freedom from religion. There's more to it, but let's just forget it. It's going to be 40 minutes long putting it on or something else. Dark side and all the others, basically, they're just trying to get money to make a big thing happen. Just like before, whenever it goes past and goes to whatever it is supposedly that the groups have gotten from basically World War I, World War II, and Pan Am, and the destruction of the intellectual Reich. And basically all this money goes to, just like with Russia and the KGB, they're getting gold, they're getting armaments, they're getting weapons and stuff. No, they go out there and they get in the Afghanistan area, which I'll tie it back in here later for everything. They go out and get things like aluminum, steel, and copper. And they don't mine it in the areas that they're at. They'll take all the money that they can get out of that, even running narco and everything else, con jobs, everything, and they'll buy, like how Havana sickness, I know they'll tell me it doesn't work, is made with like 20 or 30 of these, all shoved in a box with all of everything inside of it. And one of them has so much connection to a satellite, and then they're all connected with their Bluetooth, and it's like, and you put all that through a concentrated area through a person's head or body in a certain area. They'll get really water fat all over them. They'll get other stuff. And it's basically whenever they can just hit the water fat that is basically your brain. They go after and they get low-grade technology and try and keep everything as low-grade, low-tech as possible because it's easier to replace and easier to teach a mass group of people something. They take all this money and you can see them change it into gold, up the prices up and down, especially with platinum, running 800, 1200, 800, 1200, 800, 1200. And, maybe fluctuate the silver. Other people try and see what they're doing, and they go, yeah, I can get out of this. We have the Happy Hawaiian, other stuff like that. You have American AMC and the movie deals like that. They can even trick people into going into it because, it seems like it's good. It's got a feel-good thing to it. Okay. But then they're making the profits. Even if it's 300 shares in a 20 to 30 range. It doesn't matter. They can go someplace else, send that money in a wire around the world, MoneyGram or anything else with Walmart and all of these things, and buy what they need to buy in a cheaper place. Making sure that they have enough of whatever it is that they need to. Bags of concrete. Once you have concrete, all you need is broken diesel heads, and you can beat that stuff back down and even run it on a water power turbine. And that's a water wheel, just a water wheel, and it'll just pound that concrete back into dust, mix water with it again, and then make your house with it. With all this being said and everything, one has to realize that financially, they have everybody beat, going as old school, as primitive as possible. With everything being said also, there was, moving on from Dark Side, I'm sure there's a lot more that I could explain and everything else, and saying that they're just after the zinc and to cheat people out of certain amounts of money and profits and everything else. It's not really there. That would lead things back to them too much, and they just want to make honest deals and bring it over honestly. Kind of like how they got all the equipment to make meth. Just like they'll go to China here, and I'll tie this back in, to get all the materials and stuff to make mushrooms and everything else. And they'll probably, unless we get out, because I mean, I could see how this could go 40 more years for the USA just to grind us out completely. And they institute a draft, and then they institute dictational powers here. And do away with the Supreme Court and the legislative branch completely. Because they've both been left to run amok and a mockery of themselves over the last basically 40 years. Bagram Air Force Base. Why did it go? Why did it fall so easily? And I will say their magic men in this are a lot of people that were from the Span Am War. The Span Am War, if you counted missing in action, since it was so old school sea battles and stuff around the world, from the Philippines and those areas on around to the Indian Ocean, and basically was a world war if you counted it only as Navy. The Span Am War probably had more people missing in action, jumping ship, old wooden vessels easily taken out by ironclads and submarine situations out there. That while people will say that it wasn't allowed in dogma, it was something they looked at as suicide, and they'd always be separate from Spain eternally in a form of purgatorial damnation, citing that purgatory is actually a place or a state in the world that you're living in. These people are the ones pretty much running that. And like the money side, the dark side, all of that and everything else. Bagram Air Force Base, how did they take that? How did they get rid of that? Oh, the USA just decided to leave out, and they shot it up and destroyed it and bombed it from the air. Well, they left Bagram Air Force Base has been steadily trickled over to private security. We have used more and more people that were supposedly the, quote, conglomerate of enemies of the USA. A lot of people call them a suicide squad. They're scientist kids, military people, people that we made deals with everywhere from wars before the, back to probably the 1700s, all going forward on it, that have some way or something else where it's like technically, legally, you can't give citizenship to someone who held arms against this country. They're jailed, even if it's internationally from another country, and everything else that we say will reform them here. You're reformed. And then you're sent back to your own home country, and you can apply for citizenship that way. There's almost no way that any one branch of the government can give citizenship to someone. And they can't really do that because the whole group together has to be in the interest of the common good, because the common good is not professional soldiers. They are not anything that can hold together that, and it has to be defended by the three branches of the government. And as such, there is no way that under mutual congress that the people have anything mutual with the enemies that wanted to kill them and their government. There was a World War I person who lived here, defected and went back over and fought for them, that was involved in gas and the possibility of the first drones ever used. Their name was Page. That's all that I can really find up with. And it could be something that's just an acronym out of some of it, because it's a turn the page. And it's like, we're going to be turning the page on this. That's just gone. Granted, it's a military acronym that around here that comes from a group of individuals that had something to do with gas in World War I. The thing that they had to do with it was they would have something that is a drone. Several drones come out here, or some way they can make a static field, since gas can be contained in a static field. It's how you contain helium. It's how you contain neon or hydrogen, and it can be contained inside a magnetic static field. This field keeps everything in the center of it. So in theory, instead of wasting all the gas, having the gas possibly blown back across onto the Germans, this program was enacted a long time ago and was experimented on and almost brought into use in World War I, but was, let's just say, they didn't have the energy or the batteries capable of doing it. Once these can go across through there and hold the gas with it, this gas can be either ignited or else kept in a certain area until all the people are gassed and gotten rid of. With private security, there's not a unity in private security. Each little section of the area, since they're removed from the military, which is something that did play into a couple of very angry Mussolini World War II people families around here that said they had homesteads. They're not having their homesteads paid for. They need to be paid for and kept up. You owe them tribute and everything to Rome. And the list goes on and on. They live up the road. They're the meanest group here. They run everything just like everything out of a mafia movie. And if you ever watched them, you can tell why the mafia movie is made by actors, and no matter what, it still seems fakey to you. It's one of the reasons why it's like I never really wanted to watch The Godfather. I understand The Godfather is important. It lets you understand certain people's mindsets that are not mafia and how they deal with it. And they would never say they're mafia, mob, or anything. They just turn around and go, we're Mussolini. And most of their operatives are exactly like that. I mean, I work with several of them on a daily basis. And in several, it's like this. Half of the fast foods that I pass and everything else are all Axis powers down here. People come here and go, where's the lederhosen and swastikas? This is the place that Rome built with people that weren't idiots that go, please shoot me, we're suicidal. Everybody blames Nazi Germany, everything else. Nazi Germany and Nazi Japan are just seriously, they turned them into dogs and put a leash on them and said, sick 'em, boys. But with this, whenever one of the drones is hit or anything else, it explodes whenever it's no longer needed in the magnetic field, pulling the gas across through it. It explodes, sends out shrapnel, and also little bomblets. These drones were able to be re-upped with any unexploded ordnance, like the little bomblet packets that they had at the very first of the war, anything else they've been saving, gathering, and putting together. In a way, it does have some sophisticated technology, but these drones are literally nothing more than what you would find at Brookstone or a hobby store, Walmart if they sold them or anything. Nothing more than that, and basically just heat gunned Kevlar on them. The fact is, once you shoot one of them, the gas disperses. They come in, they're very low, they're painted black to basically the same color as the desert. There was that reported from whatever source that I got it from that I don't care, they'll never go on with it, and I'll never find them again probably, that they were black. And yeah, it's just like back as they said out there, if it's black and it's at a background, it will just be taken out. You have a minor distraction from something else. It's like people who wear black and play puppets behind there. Your mind will instantly take out the black, unknown blob that doesn't have a person's face on there. It's completely hooded over, and they're prop people moving it around. If you don't see the human mouth, face, and eyes and nose, you really don't notice it. And it's just considered an unusable shadow for your mind, and you can't really grasp it completely over what it is. So them being all jet black with not really any shine over it, kind of like how Kevlar can be once it's been smelted down. So if you shoot it with a shotgun or something else that's lead-based, even steel-based, you got to get that ball ammunition right on one part, and it's probably going to hit it and ricochet off. Anyway, there's how it is. And you don't know which gas it is that's coming across, if it's a flammable situation or else if it's something else. And some of them, when they blew them up, they blew and they let out gas. Probably nothing more than standard mustard gas, like they go, a high schooler makes it out there with it. Couldn't really get anything if it was nerve, if it was anything else. But I'm going, since they like low tech, and mustard gas is something that is very much that way. And honestly, if they looked at movies, if they made it some sort of glowing green that didn't seem yellow like mustard gas is, then they would and with the high schoolers, I'm going, it's totally accidental, like in the movie Joe Dirt. But as it is with everything, it put it out there. And green gas, with everything that we have around here, it's one of the hardest colors to make gas. But if you can make it, it scares the hell out of people. And the way that the explosion pattern went on one thing that I got to see out there, and I'm just going to cite CNN and Fox News with how it was. These are small little explosions that look black powder to me. These are not things where a grenade hit and blew. I've seen that on concrete. I've seen that on other things. We can go and look up Mythbusters and other things out there for it. It doesn't really leave a black powder mark. It doesn't really leave something where it's like it's away from it, it explodes, and if it's even on there, you have the star pattern around it. You have something that's moving that blew up. Down below it, on the wall there, and it looks like someone took something and threw it out there, and it's exploded at different levels standing up. I understand someone could say, okay, they came in there with a drone, dropped some jumper bombs, jumper mines, and they were all on timers, and they popped up and they blew and threw shrapnel everywhere. It's hell on the people in Vietnam. If this was true, that detail, since it was probably so low grade, if it did happen, it just got passed over, and it's just the big juicy tidbits that I got. I'm sure I'll be looked at as a quack. Don't worry, I only have a high school diploma, so as it is, those sound crazy if I'm right. Basically, coming back to this, the Mussolini and private security family money. They've been selling around here, and they've had some people that since, they've been weeded out over 20 years of war. There's one or two of them left. They're kind of the loudmouth knuckleheads to always talk about stuff and will spend their money. They've bought Black Hawk helicopters. They may not have one or two specific features on them that I know are new, because all the Black Hawk helicopters now, there's no glass on them. It is completely computer put in there, Star Trek. That little nose thing off the end of it, that was an experimental thing to try and see if they could get enough information, and then they've steadily gotten that back down. All the information, visual and everything, is inside there. It's not in a helmet. It's actually on the sides of everything in the glass. Same thing that they're going to be doing with Abrams, everything else out there with it. You can be like, I know this from loose lip situations, just to be like, God, they brag about their tech every day of the week. Whatever they're getting and buying, it's like, they actually sold you one of those? I mean, it's not you're not capable of. Oh, they all told me I'm too stupid to have one. No. Nah. They don't know what they're talking about. They know you don't break anything. And you've never even had a car wreck. Yeah. And it's like, it may sound a little like Legally Blonde, but the guy's capable. It's just a male version of it. But, I mean, just telling you honestly, with the situation here over it, basically they've gone out there, they sandbagged a bunch of people, knew when to rotate their people in and out. And if you look at, and I don't really care, a lot of the people that I see on there do look a lot around here. I've gotten a lot of crap because of my thick eyebrows. I was way thinner, had hair on and everything else. Finally started growing a beard. I do get really dark if I don't drink Coca-Colas and anything else out there with fluoridated situation, and go, baking soda toothpaste is wonderful. I've actually done an experiment with it. Super, super dark. I just look at it and just go, I mean, it's a little bit obvious, and I really hate this because there's two guys that I know here, including myself, when the Colorado shooter went. And it's like, they're going to be coming after us. And it's like, they actually came around in a way and said, do they do that to you all the time? From like how they did back in high school and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, all the time. The technology just gets better, so it hurts more. And they have yet to speak to me again over anything. I've heard everything from bringing in their union lawyers to Masonic lawyers, anything they could out there over it. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that I've seen, their mannerisms, like when they get in film, they do a call sign on it, that have seemed to be from the local area. And I'm just going, one or two of them, I mean, they would be talking with me, and I hung out with them. And I kind of mentioned the same thing. It's like, they got this mascot guy that was shooting tanks over there. Colin, you don't need to talk about anything. Well, you might need to be aware of it because, I mean, I don't want people coming after you saying you're Taliban and stuff and, like, shooting you or something. I mean, people do shit around me, and it's like, they started in elementary school, so they kind of keep it at elementary school. Mostly with the Vietnam and Korea and British stuff and, Russian and other things like that. And when Iraq started, it's like, you're short, you're square, kind of fat as a little kid, and you're dark-skinned. And, well, looking at it like that, I'm just like, whatever. And most other people aren't used to it or anything. But I could say this guy really did defect and went over there. He's one of these pictures that I've gotten off of the news that I'm going to say, and it's like, I can't really say his name or anything else because of whatever it is for legal stuff. And it's like, he kept going on complaining. It's like, well, I'd be able to eat eggs and be off of inorganic food. And it's like, that's why I wanted to go to Brazil, and I was going to get married to this girl and everything. I spent years with this family, and they have a lot of look-alike families with them, family members. And it's like, I really do think that everybody that we either gave whatever it is and said, nice to whatever it is with World War II and World War I, it's bygones be bygones. Yeah, stuff about Al-Qaeda because it was supposedly attached to something out there. And, you listen to your grandpa's stories and stuff out there with it. ISIS and everything else. Sure, help us out with the military. I think they put in their people they knew would panic, wouldn't work with anything, and brought in really sophisticated technology and basically just said, we want our family that's over there, that's on the other side, that we'd never private security take the job or contract and go after them. And we're going to give them some bunch of stuff, just like we did with Russia, with our other cousins that were on the other side. And it's like, in a way, I go, it's the Battle of Braveheart, where the Irish run over there and they shake hands with the Scottish, and then they turn and look at the English and get ready to charge them, and they're just lucky they had archers. Which, granted, they got rid of all the archers by giving all the archery / drones and helicopters and stuff to the private security that they knew that they would have a knucklehead rotation pop up, like the USSR did. Of course, granted, if China comes in on this later, and they have Japanese religion, since these people are against Japan and they've been linked to the nerve gas attack that they had over there in their subway, and World War II Japanese stuff, that they have said that they would never be any part of a dictatorial army and have complete sovereignty of the emperor's lineage separate from there. Sorry, gotta move the feet. Anyway, China might not use them. 2, there's one thing to be brought up. And this is kind of one of the things that goes to one of the locals. And this is also the easiest way, since taxpayers paid for all the money, for all the weaponry and everything, and they kind of like handed it over. They'll still have their caves they can keep the Russian MiGs in. They'll still have their caves they can keep the Black Hawk helicopters in, the drones and everything else. And they'll let so much be destroyed and say there's enough shrapnel there, isn't it? After it's filled with like parts of the downed other helicopters that you can't really verify serial numbers on. Going to locals, okay, I don't really care. People's mentioned Al-Qaeda in every single way, and then they blame 4 Native American groups that have a similar phrase-sounding word technology of something in their linguistical stuff. We can all say that something like hutch, being like, I don't know, the bookcase you can see behind me or the furniture right behind me, it's like it's a hutch, but a hutch can also mean a house. So it sounds similar, doesn't mean anything out there. Or a hutch can be framework, like the Amish, putting up a barn. And it's not yet a barn yet, it's a hutch. There is some play in the words here. I understand I'm not a complete fluent speaker, but it is something along those lines to where people get like that. And I have heard of some friendly fire incidences between these native group speakers of the USA and Iraqi forces. Mostly with one group from out in Oklahoma and Iraq, and more things that are for things in the East Coast or Southeast still in Afghanistan. Locals. One group that's been around that said that they were going to sacrifice and slaughter me and everything else, and that they could do that with any person they met because of everything, and said that I destroyed their perfect world way back when. There's some stuff in the 80s that happened here that still can't really talk about, but maybe I will someday, just because it's like if they don't come for me on this, they ain't coming for anything. The slaughter of Horsehead Bay. This is an incident that's been referred to from a guy that I call Prickles. He won't ever tell me his real name. He's part of the Mussolini family. I've heard that he's since sacrificed himself from there and is considered Taliban. And this family has gone after. They've done things, microwave, everything else, and other stuff to certain individuals around here. It's probably everyday occurrence with like the mafia up north or whatever you hear about with them. And it's like, oh God, they finally had something happen here for something. And all sorts of other things. They go on about subliminal implantations, other stuff. Main thing is they got experimented on in World War II. They can't grow, and they call themselves the cherubims. They really can't grow. This is big news over in France. They look for these people all the time. These are the people above the collaborators, everything else, in southern Mussolini France that was held and everything else. And that once Hitler quashed the French completely in their resistance, they would give them the Palace of Versailles and everything else, and they'd go and play in it and whatever every day of the week. Yeah, seriously, some of them look like little kids. The exoskeletal chemicals has made one of them grow up in like the period of like 8 months from like a 6 or 8 year old, kind of frozen in time at 1943 or whatever it was when Rome got surrounded and everything else. And I've watched him, had to see him 2 or 3 times a week, and he grew up that much. I mean, seriously, like the Hulk breaking clothes, just growing up to be a normal sized male. And very intelligent, very everything else. Super intelligent, but after he grew, he could only remember things that like he studied the most of, which was a type of wildlife biology. They've got some others. Every time they get kicked out, they refer to they always have their tally and their tally people, and they take tallies of everybody, and if you're in their tally, they throw you out and you whatever. And they just band them all together and they put it in there, and it's like the Taliban. And then they have their religious caste and everything else that's for future children and everything else, and the promise of future children, and then one day they'll be with them. And it's kind of like, no, they won't ever do that. It's like, just go and do that forever. They have their things. It's kind of like the greatest created woman is the statues of ISIS, because none of them exist and they don't have anything, and we'll just see if someone will bring up and make something else. That's why each sect of ISIS, looking at them with everything else in a other conversation with another person that's in a separate unit from them, or whatever I want to call it. Out in this one area, we'd be talking to some very high-end people. One of them's dead now that was in politics and stuff. And he said that he thought they'd make another group and call it ISIS. And they had a big fight amongst the Mussolini family and everything else. And that's why each sect of, or clique, like a gangbanger situation, based off of the recognition of the Nazi cult by Pope John Paul II. We can say it's for things they did in the USA and Knoxville and stuff in the 1980s. Is completely ran by women. So while you may have someone trying to do something to curry favor with one of these women, like ISIS L, ISIS K, ISIS Alphabet, ISIS Kanji, one needs to realize that, or else ISIS conjugation or conjunction, they do mess it up, and they do overly pronunciate things with a southern accent, so you don't really have the first or last of the syllables. But in going with this, I just got to say, Slaughter of Horsehead Bay, going back to it, all the leaders of it are basically gangbangers. That's why they brought ISIS in, because they're going to be separate from the main government Taliban and the religious situation, and they're almost going to be ran like Germans, and basically killed off. And once whatever's over, they take off their uniforms and become secular and never pick up anything weaponry again. And they're all ran by women. So it's basically guys trying to curry favor in a motherly son situation, or else devotion unto a woman. Slaughter of Horsehead Bay does refer to, and I will say Afghanistan looks like a prancing horse moving towards Europe. China will probably try and throw the reins on it for its deals with Europe, and if it does, it'll just poison all the water down, whatever it is. Basically with things that would come from a sewage plant out throughout all the places that it's trying to dam up all the water right now, which will go down into India and everything else and cause major problems. Slaughter of Horsehead Bay refers to when, also amongst this group, locally, and the other groups, out there. And yes, I went to high school with one of these groups. I was supposed to not talk to them that much. I was supposed to be kept away from me. They were kind of a bunch of dicks. With a group that went on and said they were making ISIS, and the others the Taliban situation. And honestly, they do go a lot more with Al Qaeda in a lot of it, because all of Al Qaeda is supposed to be basically experiments on people. If there was a high-end weird science tech, it's like cloning on people and getting tech from whatever it is and seeing how to make people into stronger muscle people or something else like that. Kind of like how Cobra was supposed to do in the time before with Luxembourg and the Nazi king. Totally off the wall, totally anything else. I know I'll be looked at and told I'm crazy, but that's also the technology that led to this guy growing up so much. ISIS is supposed to go for whoever it is for the next generation with girls or someone else so that they can grow up and basically just run them through off of everything. They refer to Horsehead Bay as the slaughter of the Japanese Jews and everything else, when the people would take too much population of Crassus and his group that went all the way out, documented on Discovery Channel and History Channel, as that they are in Mongolia when the Mongols wanted to invade Japan, and 57 Jews from wherever it is out there at Japan on this one bay, they went out there and slaughtered them all. They supposedly held off the Mongol invasion. The emperor had just given the Jews their horses back and everything. So they snuck in around on the other side and replaced the emperor with a look-alike, ending the imperial line of Japan. Doesn't matter if this is true or not, this is what they believe in their dogma. And the slaughter of Horsehead Bay has been brought up and mentioned around here, and about 4 or 5 days later, the Taliban advance came. And anyone who was on the list that they brought that had anything to do with horses, such for those that were pushed off deep into the mountains and the outer wild regions, were all slaughtered at the time of Horsehead Bay. They were all supposed to go to these little bitty towns and slaughter all the people who had horses. And that was one of the ways they would know them for being Jewish, discover their clothing, or anything else, or any other obvious identifying marks. And as it is, then they get lists and registries from all of them and everything else, as we've handed over lists and registries already under Joe Biden. Another thing that's supposed to come across this is any and all international travelers. I have seen one person from Tennessee, North Carolina area, Southern Appalachia, that was on like the second or third day at the airport, and he did say in English, looking up, "When are we going to get to a place that's just going to accept us?" I know this guy from elementary school. He's about 10 years older than me. He's over there and very prominently in the center of it. He's a big guy. He's a head above everybody else, and he does have some very different facial features across right through here. So he does stand out. You can try and say that he's Taliban or anything else. That's on you. I don't label him into anything else. He rejected his USA citizenship when they started doing some weird stuff, and some people around here that were considered core people of certain groups were killed off. And it's like, well, without their DNA and stuff and everything, there's only been 4 or 5 DNA tests, so we can't really trust that until we get about 10 or 20 samples from them to say that it was all from them and that it came from double-blind to triple-blind areas off of it. And they just said, screw this, we're not going to be DNA lab rats. And my mom took me to a place for 3 years where I donated blood between 2 and 5, and even had one person who was a killer clown person come over and try and seriously try to drink my blood and stuff, which supposedly is a gift from the Taliban group that said that they could sacrifice me. That's the Mussolini group. And there's been successive other people that have progressed onto this into satanic ritual worship that I've had now my in-laws, because we live in a little town, or whatever you want to call it. They're like second cousins or first cousins, something like that, are in the Naval Recon that's actually asked me, what have I heard about that? And I wasn't really paying attention to this girl behind me who kept running her mouth when they had this satanic killing of a construction group, and they went to this hotel that's been demolished that was across from wherever it is, and I routinely go to a goth club that's really close to it. And they actually got shut down for reconstruction or whatever, and they're going to have the goth club over there in the big reception area or whatever it was at the hotel. And for some reason, I just didn't go to it, and I've never put it together until this undercover police officer told me what it was, and I was like, oh, wow, that solves everything with that. But the main thing that Horsehead-based slaughter is supposed to do is stop international travel, a lot of airplane flights and everything. Supposedly the last people that were in the Mongolian thing that was coming over there were the last ones with, like, Crassus's overpopulation that would be able to go across borders in a way and go to the Americas without any ability of defiling the borders, which basically means air travel. Basically, there is hot air balloons in the area, so if you were able to come by flight or a dragon to Japan, Korea, or any of these other places, you were considered to be safe travel. Ring 911 again? Or anything else? Also, removers of anything that's like people without borders. There is a dogmatic situation with Monaco, and there are a lot of Monacan separatists that follow Mussolini. The partisans that went after Mussolini supposedly have no borders and follow migratory situations. There are some things with certain internal migratory workers that follow their celebrities around. I've heard they've all of a sudden died of heart attacks, COVID, or else in like random shootings in the riots to like COVID wars. No one's heard anything else about them. Came from family members out there. Stupid situations that either happened in panic tramples in New York or something else like that. You know, you hear about people walking around shooting people for coughing and sneezing, and they don't really have any next of kin or life insurance filled out or will, and such and such. Hate saying it's that vague, but, you know, people come back down and be like, we should have just stayed here. You know, they shot so-and-so up there, they shot this, they shot that. And granted, they're saying they got shot, but nobody died. And then, oh no, they're dead, 2 weeks later. ISIS. Main thing about ISIS, their women would never be seduced by Mussolini. I have another source thing that I'm going to probably send in Library of Congress and let them deal with that. And this is running way more than 40 minutes, but oh well. Reproduction, success reproduction, lost about 110 million people off of this because we don't tally up private security deaths. Moving right along with it, reproduction, everything, that's basically downtown. A lot of people out there, and I will say that if you want to get onto police force, I've watched this one girl in Walmart. Her husband died really quick in Operation Enduring Freedom. Another person's husband died, and he got his death benefits. The other one was on a private security mission, so he didn't get his benefits or something else like that, and didn't even get counted as a USA Def. She went over there. She wasn't pregnant. She kicked the girl whose husband was registered. Kicked her in the stomach. She's visibly like 6 months pregnant. The baby fell out by the end of the cart aisle. They'll cover that up, say it never happened or anything else. And someone came in and said, you're exactly the type of person we need to be working in whatever it is. and they've been assigned to a Native American reservation, which has also came back to me from a California source and everything else, that everyone in the world is scrambling in the Democratic strongholds to be an internationally assigned police officer or a police officer on a reservation because they cannot be used in the draft in any way. They are scrambling in every way out there because of a quote that Biden said, and I'll get to that a little bit later here, that the draft is coming. We're just going to do a pullback and let everybody get in wherever they're going to be in at, and wherever their main leadership is, we're just going to blow the fuck out of it. And we're going to remove as many of our allies and everything else and tell everybody else they should have just gone to the countryside. And if not, kind of like how they were in Knoxville and some of the other places, they just look at you and go, you gave these people the time of day. You talked to these people. You helped these people. You went to these people's restaurant and you left them a 17% tip or a 20% tip. Just because you wanted to throw $3 down, or else go, I don't need to change, and it was a 20. That's all I can really say there with that. They do look at you as just as guilty as whatever it is. If any one of the Nazis starts up anything, does anything, or says anything else, and you were in some way not being helpful, or else just not openly boycotting their restaurant. ISIS-L, ISIS Lebanon. I've never heard of anything else. All I've really heard of on the news was ISIS-L, like as in God, E-L, ISIL. And that they were the god that made everything around here. Technically, it's right up the road with another one that was in supposedly Mussolini's inner circle in Union County. They go around there. Back in the 80s, they made stuff like the Muslim Brotherhood that took over Egypt, everything else. And seriously, they really do have a delusional program that they send to anybody that they can get their number or email from, that they're all swearing in themselves like in Snake Plissken movies. They love splicing things back and forth from there. And if they know it's been on your movie card, they'll hack that and just send it over there for you or whatever it is. And they'll even figure out a way how to use the cameras if you're driving along the street, since there's so many videotaped around here. And it's like, well, we know where the Oak Ridge escape routes are, aren't we? I mean, I hate saying it like that, but that's like, kids just want to hack anything. And honestly, with the Lebanon, I have heard of them, and they do go basically up and down Highway 33. We all knew that there was this place called Church Highway 33 that was smuggling art. They really went after them. They do not have a public church. There are numerous ones of the churches that have sued that are up and down Highway 33 out here, going to Maynardville. And they have sued. They have standing lawsuits. They have everything else. And people will just be like... And it's like, don't worry, so long as you do something homosexual, they'll just think that you're USA. I know, it's so ridiculous. And they honestly think if you talk about them that you're flirting with them. And they do encourage homosexuality. They don't limit it because homosexuals have had numerous things that they could be good for, especially in the military. There's numerous things over homosexual military brigades. And they do make up most of the Nazis that came here. And supposedly we had the Grob particle, and then it shows up over in Rome as a form of tithe. But as it is, the Lebanon, ISIS-L, is supposed to remove any